measuring stick just changed around here, buddy. You're looking at it.
You are now listening to the Outsiders Podcast, the most exciting and hard-hitting show on the net. And now, bringing it hard as always, here are your hosts, Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger.
And it's that time of year again. College basketball preview from the Outsiders Podcast. Clint Schweitzer and Noah Groniger joining you. Noah, it just feels right.
Yes, it does, especially with the Chiefs at 1-7 right now.
Good reason. Good reason as any, but also because college basketball is beginning. And I'll tell you what, guys, we got a lot going on. Of course, you guys know I'm a Mizzou guy. Noah here's a Gonzaga guy. We're going to be highlighting those two teams. We're going to be talking a lot of college basketball today. Some of our favorite teams coming into the year. Maybe our Final Four predictions, or is it too early for that?
Kentucky, and Kentucky.
Okay, I think we got it. I think we got that out of the way. Final Four prediction.
Just trying to help those out for March when it comes around.
Well, I guess we're going to have to help out Obama again. He'll probably just KU all the way. That's usually what he does.
Well, that's not a bad choice either.
I tell you what, let's start with them. Kansas coming in another year. They lose, of course, Tyshawn Taylor. They lose Thomas Robinson, but they're going to win the Big 12 again for the 50th straight year.
Yeah, Bill Self has those guys ready. He's got them ready to go, and they'll definitely take the Big 12 and just see what they can do from there. Yeah,
and with them, it'll either be a trip to the national title game or an early exit. So just one of the two. Of course, speaking of early exits, Mizzou coming in ranked 15th in the AP poll to start this season. A lot of talent on that team. A lot of local listeners, big Mizzou fans out there. We're going to be talking to Jarrett Sutton coming up, breaking down this Mizzou team, and he really has a lot of good things to say. He thinks that this team could even be better, maybe even than last year's Missouri team that lost disappointingly in the NCAA tournament to Norfolk State. But hey, this Missouri team's looked really good. The transfers: Ernest Ross, Keon Bell, of course. Don't forget Jabari Brown, Alex Oriaki from UConn. Just insane transfers, 5 stars everywhere, a lot of incoming talent. Missouri's going to have every bit of a chance, but do you think the SEC is going to help or hurt Missouri this season? They got to play Kentucky, obviously. That's one problem.
Yeah, other than Kentucky, I think it's going to help them, actually. I don't see the SEC being strong in basketball. So
I think Florida's a really good team. They're a top 10 team. Missouri,
Billy Donovan always does a good job with them. So.
They're preseason number 10. I really like what he's doing down there. That guard play, Bradley Beal, great stuff down there. Only 3 SEC teams ranked, though: Kentucky, Florida, and Missouri. So we'll see if anybody can rise out of that. I think Alabama's got some talent, maybe Mississippi State. Of course, we're going to be talking West Coast Conference basketball. Of course, Noah, your Gonzaga Bulldogs. And we got a very special guest, Kyle Bankhead, ex-guard, is going to be joining us.
Now coach. The assistant coach with the San Diego Toreros.
So, hey,
also in the WCC. So
great guest.
Going against his old team.
Hey, great guest coming on today, going to help us break down this college basketball season. I'm just happy that the ball is in the air and we're getting ready to go. It feels weird because college basketball starts on the fringe of football season. Football season's, kind of halfway through, or college football is kind of on its last, few weeks. And then college basketball starts. And it's an amazing time in sports. I mean, is there a busier, more crazy time in sports? We know it is for us because we have to cover it all. So
yeah, we got the NFL halfway through. We got college football winding down, college basketball starting up, baseball over, thank God. And and we're moving on to bigger and better things.
Yes, we are. And I'll tell you what, this is going to be an interesting season because you've got some teams moving to different conferences. Of course, we're talking about Missouri, Texas A&M, go to the SEC, among others, and BYU starting their second year in the West Coast Conference. So there are a lot of differences kind of going on. But a lot of, as you look in the top 10, you look at the top 15, there's a lot of chalk in there right now because you see a lot of programs that have been there a lot of times. Indiana, of course, number 1, and who could blame them for that? I mean, Zeller is the man. That's going to be a very good team. I think definitely a Final Four type team. I mean, they're preseason number 1. I think they deserve it.
I think they deserve it. Tom Crean's getting a good program up there, but I don't see them making the Final Four. I don't trust Tom Crean to get them to that level.
We'll see. I mean, I think he had him heading towards that level last year. They beat Kentucky in the regular season. I like Tom Crean. I think he's going to really get it done there at Indiana. The preseason number 1, obviously, the recruiting's been amazing. So we'll see where that goes. I think they're going to be the team to knock off. A team I think is interesting. How about UCLA? The number 1 recruiting class, including Shabazz Muhammad, the kid from Las Vegas that everyone thought was just going to go to UNLV, but he winds up at UCLA. So I think that means that, Ben Howland, maybe he's not washed up out there. And
don't remind me of Ben Allen and UCLA being a Gonzaga fan and them crushing my hopes and dreams with Adam Morrison.
It's okay. 2006 was only 6 years ago. No, and I'm sure those wounds are fresh here. Try being a Missouri fan for once and dealing with this Norfolk State thing, man. I mean, we're talking about a 15 seed here.
Yeah, that can be crushing as well.
Just a little bit.
I really had high hopes for that Adam Morrison team, that he could carry us to a national championship, and instead we fall flat in the second half against UCLA. Jordan Farmar going on with the Lakers after that. He really devastated.
The Gus Johnson call on that, I believe, was out of this world. I cannot replicate it because it was just insane. But how about a conference like the Big Ten that I think is going to have a lot of good teams? Again, Ohio State's in the top 5. Going to look for a lot of good things from them. Matt Painter at Purdue maybe had a little bit of a down year last year, but see them coming up. Illinois is a team that's interesting to me with a new coach and a whole new system there. So
yeah, Bruce Weber moves on to K-State. So
yes, exactly. Bruce Weber on to Kansas State. And that's a program under Frank Martin that had gotten nothing but better. Do you think Kansas State, do you think they'd take a step back with Bruce Weber? Because he was vilified, in Champaign as much as anybody I've ever seen in college coaching.
I think initially they might take a step back, but I think he'll get them to respectability here in the next couple years.
Well, the Big 12 isn't a good conference. Let's start there. The Big 12's not good this year.
Nope, got to get through KU. That's about it.
You know what? I think right now you're talking about Kansas and maybe – I think Baylor, possibly Texas, maybe barely cracking the top 25, but they're perennial underachievers, under Coach Rick Barnes. So really the Big 12 to me isn't bringing a lot this year if you're not Kansas. Maybe Baylor. I do like I like the Baylor guard play, and they got some size back, and I think they underachieved a bit last year. But, again, it's going to run through Kansas, and that's just kind of how it is. And as a Mizzou guy, I don't have to even worry about that anymore. I just watch it unfold.
You're in the SEC. You don't have nothing to do with that.
Yeah, I definitely don't. I'm going to ask Jarrett Sutton because I don't know if he'll answer this question, but Kansas didn't really want to continue playing. Even in the non-con, they weren't really interested in that. Nothing to gain for the Jayhawks there?
Possibly nothing to gain. Some hard feelings for Mizzou leaving, and maybe a little jealousy, maybe a little.
Oh, I don't know.
Maybe a lot?
Should we go there? Oh, my goodness. Boy, it's really, really getting heated here in the Outsiders Podcast studios. We continue to preview college basketball, which should be very interesting. Of course, Kentucky. I'll tell you what, they brought in a class this year again. And my favorite recruit coming into Kentucky this year, a guy I think you guys need to watch, is going to be center Nerlens Noel. This guy, I think Anthony Davis, but I think maybe with a little more ability around the rim to score. We saw Anthony Davis disappear sometimes scoring the basketball. This is the real deal, this Noel guy.
Well, Anthony Davis had a good first game against Tim Duncan and the Spurs in his NBA debut, and Noel definitely has a lot to live up to with Anthony Davis and the Unibrow.
This recruiting class, once again, you replace guys like Kid Gilchrist, Anthony Davis, with guys, like Archie Goodwin, like Alex Poitras, and I don't know. Can Calipari just keep doing it? I mean, yes. Is there ever going to be a year where his top five recruits just don't gel and don't have a good team, or is that not going to happen?
I don't know. Calipari's good at it. He keeps doing it, and until maybe if they find a violation that he might have in there, then it might stop. But until then, I think it's just going to keep on rolling. Yeah.
Calipari, he's the Nick Saban of college basketball. I mean, this guy pulls in the recruiting classes. He's the best recruiter in the game, and I don't see that really even changing anytime soon. And we're getting ready to be joined by none other than Jarrett Sutton, ex-Mizzou guard. Came to Mizzou as a walk-on, wound up earning a scholarship, and just was a real integral part of that team last year. And, of course, we're going to ask him. I mean, they rotated 7 players last year. Missouri was a 2 seed, Big 12 tournament champions, and we'll see how that transitions to the SEC with all these new faces. The guy I'm waiting to see is Alex Oriaki. I mean, this is a dominant type center from UConn, averaged 10 points a game during their national title year. Jabari Brown, one of the top recruits in the nation, out of California, started at Oregon. This is going to be a really exciting team, I think. Size, athleticism. I mean, you bring back Lawrence Bowers, and you add in Phil Pressey, Michael Dixon. I think that's probably the best backcourt in the country, Dixon and Pressey. Agreed?
Agreed. And going back to Alex Oriaki and your size, that's an area that Mizzou has struggled with the past few years. So Alex Oriaki's going to add a lot to that postgame.
Yeah, this is a Missouri team that won the Big 12 championship, tournament championship with Ricardo Ratliff and Steve Moore. These are guys I loved, but maybe didn't have the presence around the rim to score the ball, to rebound consistently. But I'll tell you, with Alex Oriaki, with a guy like Lawrence Bowers back, freshmen like Stefan Yankovic, there's going to be a lot of size and depth for this team. So we're going to go ahead and bring on Jarrett Sutton, talk some Tiger basketball. Okay, and we are back, and right now we are still breaking down college basketball. We're going to go to the Mizzou side of things right now, talking with ex-Mizzou player Jarrett Sutton. Jarrett, it sounds weird to say ex-Mizzou player. It seems like you should be out there ready to start a new season, doesn't it, my man?
It does. I tell you what, I got to watch that first exhibition game the other night, and I had mixed feelings. I was excited and really, geared up for the new season, but at the same time, it's weird to actually watch a basketball game on television. It's an awkward feeling.
I bet so, man. I'll tell you what, watching that first exhibition game, of course, it's against Northwest Missouri State, but you practiced against a lot of these guys from last as a player last year. Let's talk about some of these newcomers, because I saw a lot of big, fast, athletic, smooth players out there. Ernest Ross, Keon Bell. We'll see Jabari Brown later, but just talk about some of these guys and your experiences practicing against them last year and how you think they'll fit in this year.
Yeah, so last year getting a lot of reps with Keon and with Ernest, and you mentioned Jabari and Danny Feldman, a lot of guys that are transfers, and to see their talent level last year and what they brought to us from a practice perspective and giving us a great look last year, and now to see them on the floor, it's just exciting to see them out there and their athletic ability and the tools that they have and the strength and the athleticism, and it's just going to be a year for them that I am excited to watch what they do. The talent speaks for itself, but the depth, adding Alex Oriaki, who, as you saw in the game the other night, he's a big-time presence inside, blocking shots, and he can finish, and he's just an assist for Phil right around the basket. And it's you got Lawrence back, and you got Tony Criswell coming off the bench, and there's so much size there, and guys that can do multiple things, guys that can shoot it. You saw Ernest shoot the ball so well the other night, but when I saw Ernest in practice, he was more of a powerful transition, take it to the basket, that's his game, and you'll see more of that as the preseason, as the year kicks off. But it's good to see him shoot the ball so well. He can shoot it well. That's a strength of his. But, he's also a powerful force inside, and you could see him at the 4 this year as well, if they ever needed to go with that route. But, again, so much talent, and I love what Coach Hayes says about Keon and trying to make him a lockdown defender, because he's just, from a guard perspective, he's so strong, he's so athletic. And I think you saw that the other night, that he just has those quick hands where he can steal a ball, and it's coast to coast, and it's a dunk. And those are the kind of guys that Coach Hayes loves. He loves those guys who can get after, can change a game defensively. And it'll be great having Mike back. And once the tools, once everybody comes together and they get some practice time and some game reps underneath them, it'll be exciting to watch.
Now, of course, going back to last year, with the exception of Alex Oriaki, who was added later, there's been a lot of talk, and a lot of people said that a lot of these transfers, Ross, Bell, Brown, that these guys came in and absolutely gave the starters fits in practice and beat them a lot of times. Now, you're the only one that was there. You were at practice every day. Was this the case? Were these guys showing up last year and playing hard against the starters?
Absolutely, and I wouldn't go so much as to beating the starters, but we gave them a run for their money. We gave them a good 5-on-5 showing, and granted, we didn't have much size. We just had those 3, so it was tough to match up against Steve and Ricardo. But I think from a guard perspective, we gave Marcus a good look. We gave Kimmy a good look. We gave Matt a good defensive presence where we had Keon be a guy, say a Williams or a LeBron Nash from Oklahoma State. We had him being those athletic players, and they simulated that really well in practice. So I think with now as this year takes its place, I think they're going to be in practice, and they're going to be those guys that are filling in for Kimmy and filling in for Marcus, and trying to take on a leadership role that Kimmy and Marcus had that was so great, and Matt and myself and Steve and Ricardo and Andy, and we just had a great group because we had so much great chemistry, and that's kind of what their biggest challenge will be, is to bring all those pieces together and really start to work as a team.
I'll tell you what, Frank Haith, he's got a different animal this year, because going back to last year, Missouri, you guys had to rotate 7 players most every game. Talk about how different it's going to be for Frank Haith having all these players at his disposal versus the amazing job he did last year with only 7.
Yeah, well, I think it's going to be a breath of fresh air for him as he looks down the bench and knows that he can have multiple lineups. He can have us playing small and use our quickness and our speed. He can also put in a lineup where we use our strengths and our depth and our height to our advantage. So I think that's a big thing because last year we were very limited. We did have those 7 guys and we ran certain sets to try to get easy shots and try to incorporate an offensive scheme with our lack of depth. And that's kind of where we're at. Our biggest guy was Ricardo, and he was around 6'7" guy, but Ricardo is a much different big guy. He's a finesse big guy. He's a guy that hangs around the basket and gets those tip-in. He's got great hands. With this team, you got Alex who can literally get up above the rim and block shots, and we didn't have a shot blocker last year. So that goes to Coach Haith's credit in that he's brought in guys that can really help us out. And you look at the games last year, K-State game, that was a bad matchup for us. Guys that are bigger than us that we don't match up well against, and even the Norfolk State game, that wasn't a good matchup for us. We knew that going into it, and so there's games that you look at on our schedule last year, and then we got split by K-State, and that was a bad matchup for us. And I just don't think they're going to have a matchup this year where you sit there and you look at it and you go, oh, that's a bad matchup, because we can match up with multiple teams in different scenarios, whether it's speed or height.
Well, let's go back to last year a little bit, because this was a team wound up as a 2 seed in the tournament, won the Big 12 tournament championship, one of the greatest seasons in Mizzou history. We will never forget guys like Kim English, yourself, Marcus Denman, Steve Moore, of course, Ricardo Ratliff, all those guys brought so much. I'm not trying to put you on the spot here. Okay, yeah, I am a little bit. We saw the end of the Mike Anderson era sort of in turmoil as he left for Arkansas. The team did not play well down the stretch in 2010, 2011. What about Coach Frank Haith was able to come in and inject what you guys needed to succeed last year?
Well, I think Coach Haith came in. I think he did a great job of preparing for the season and kind of know what he had and know and come in and start asking questions and bringing us in for meetings and kind of really breaking down and just asking simply what went wrong. What's the Achilles heel? Why'd you guys flake out at the end of the season? And I think that's a testament to him because he really wanted to find out what we were about, and he really did a great job of planning that out. So when the season started and when we hit preseason, he knew how to get us ready. And whether that be, we did a deal with the Marines before we even started practices, and it was a team building exercise, and it was teaching us how to work together and how to be a team and how to depend on one another. And that was huge because once we got into practice, we really kind of took that to the practice floor. We kind of knew that with us, we had to throw egos out the door. We had to throw, whatever the future was for some of our guys and the NBA and what their professional life was, and really focus in on our senior season and wanting to make it the best year we could. And knowing there was a lot of questions, and knowing that Coach Anderson had left, and knowing that people weren't happy about the Coach Haith hire, but we felt great about it because I think Coach Haith really wanted to figure out what we were about and what our team was going to be, and he did a great job, and he put us in situations where we could be successful, and he didn't try to go out of his way and kind of get us into something that we weren't. He knew what we were. He knew we were small, but he knew we had guys that busted our butts on defense, and that we shot the ball well, we worked well as a team, and I think that was a testament to him.
It's kind of funny now looking back as Missouri's cutting down the nets in Kansas City at the Big 12 championships. I remember saying to my group of friends, I said, if this is the high point right here, I'm okay with that because this is amazing. Unfortunately, that wound up being the high point because you talked about it, you touched on it going into in Omaha, playing and losing to Norfolk State in the first round. What was that? What was that like emotionally? For you seniors, you'd come all this way, you go into the first round in a fluky loss. I'm sorry, it was a fluky loss when you have teams like that throwing in, as shooting that high of 3-point percentage and knocking you guys off. What was that like for you guys? And is it something that really you'll ever recover from as a player?
I don't think words can describe that loss. It was from a sport sporting side, from an athletic side, it was the worst experience I've had in athletics. Just going into that locker room and knowing we had so much more. We had we kind of saw ourselves going much farther. And it wasn't, we looked over Norfolk State. It wasn't we took them lightly. They played well. They beat us. They outplayed us. And again, it wasn't a matchup that we really liked on paper. But that feeling in that locker room was just kind of deflated and in shock, and knowing that that's how we went out, and knowing that that's the taste we had in our mouth to end our careers at Mizzou was not fun. And I hope our guys that are playing this year understand that was an ugly loss, and that you never want to have that feeling when you end your season and you're looking in the mirror going, we had so much more to achieve, and we really felt that. And so I think when we got back to Columbia, and even as the rest of the tournament went on, and even as the Kentucky won it all, it didn't heal. And I think it's just one of those deals where it's taken time, and now I know that it's gone, it's done. There's nothing we can do about it. But people come up to me all the time, and it's not about the Big 12 championship. It's about, hey, tough loss, tough way to go out, and I just hope that teams that follow us remember that feeling, and I hope Lawrence and Phil and Mike can really express, once that time comes, if that opportunity is there, that you're just not going to go out that way. You won't settle for that.
Well, I think regardless of that loss, this will still be remembered, and the legacy will still be what a fantastic senior season you guys had. I don't think there's any question about that. And talking about replacing guys, like Kim English, Marcus Denman this year. Marcus Denman was a guy that his game was built on being able to, off the dribble, create his own shot. Do you feel that there's a player on that team? I think maybe Michael Dixon might have to become that guy this year. Give us your thoughts, kind of on the backcourt in general. Phil Pressey, Michael Dixon, and who do you think can kind of take over for Denman's productivity from last year?
Yeah, I think the thing about Marcus was he was one of the toughest guys I've ever played with. He played with no emotion. He walked out on that floor, and he had a job to do, and he knew he was going to play at the highest level he could play at for us to win, both offensively and defensively. And that's saying something. I mean, he was no talk. He just went out and he performed, and he let his play do the talking. And I see Mike in that role. I do. I think he can shoot it at that high percentage, and he can create his own shot. Absolutely. But you really can't define a guy like Marcus Denman. I mean, you look at that Kansas game at home. I mean, he just went off, and he has that toughness to where he wants that big shot late in the game, and so many times we'd call on him and he'd deliver. And I think somebody is going to have to take that role, because this team is going to down the road be faced with adversity. They're going to be in close games. They're going to be in those tough games, and that's something that we're going to have to wait and see, is who's going to fill in that role. They have so many people that could fill in there. If it's Lawrence, if it's Phil, if it's Ernest, if it's Keon, Mike, they have so many guys that can take that role. But the key for them, what makes them tick, is Phil Pressey. I think he's a guy that is going to have to be that Marcus Denman, that Kim English. He's going to have to be the leader, and he knows that. And I've heard him talk, I've heard Coach Hay talk about it, that he kind of, last year he was our playmaker, he ran the show, but he knew that the leaders were Marcus and Kimmy, and he's stepping now into that role, and he can take on those reins. And I'm really excited for Phil. You got Lawrence back, you got Alex, you got Keon. But Phil and Lawrence, I think, are going to be those guys that are going to have to be the leaders of this team, and step up and play those roles that Marcus and Kimmy were in.
Yeah, I'm glad you mentioned Lawrence Bowers, and that was going to be my next question. Of course, getting Lawrence back this year is absolutely huge. I remember, a year ago he goes down in the offseason with a knee injury. It was devastating. Really hurt the depth, I think, from last year. But talk about, what he's going to add to this team, because it'd be a lot different look without him in there. Just how is his dynamic going to play into this year?
Yeah, well, I look at Lawrence as a guy, this is his 5th year in the program, and, devastating injury last year. I know he wanted to be a part of our year, and obviously he would have helped us, tremendously. Words can't describe what he would have given us last year, but, so those things happened, and this year, number one, he just brings such a leadership mentality. He's a great representative of our program on and off the floor. When you have guys like that, you know things are going to go well because, you know, young guys are going to pick up on things that he does, and he's a great role model for our young players, and we got a lot of them. We got a lot of new guys, and we got a lot of guys. This is their first year in this thing, and this is his fifth for him. So he's been here, and he knows how to act. He knows how to perform. You know, he is a guy that gets there before practice, stays after, works on his game, and that's something that our class, me and Marcus and Kimmy and Ricardo and Steve, we're so used to, you know, putting in that extra time, putting in that extra work. And I think that's what Lawrence brings is that attitude of, you know, put in your time and get yourself better and get yourself ready to play because they're going to be playing some big games this year, and you know the ceiling is high for them. So I think Lawrence is and just having his hands, he's so great around the basket. He's a highlight waiting to happen. With him and Phil, they work so well together in transition. If Lawrence gets out on the break, Phil's got to find a way to get him the ball, and Lawrence can finish. So it's great to have him back, and I know Lawrence has added about 15 pounds of muscle, which is huge for him. It's great in his development, and so I'm excited for him. It's going to be a great year for him.
And, of course, we've seen the football team begin their journey into the SEC this year. Missouri basketball will be doing the same. How different is that going to be? I mean, you were talking about not playing Kansas anymore. I guess they didn't want to do that. So we're going to be not even seeing them in the non-con, going to the SEC.
Right.
How different is that going to be playing against the Kentuckys, Auburns, Ole Misses? It's just a different thing, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, you know, I think people around, you know, the Midwest, they kind of look at it as, you know, the SEC, wow, they're a football conference, not really a basketball conference. And you got to sit there and think, well, you got John Calipari and you got, you know, Billy Donovan, who are two phenomenal coaches, two of the best coaches in the country. We've won national championships, and they're always in the tournament. And, you know, you look what Florida did last year. They had a great year. And, that, you know, the SEC is no joke. You got, you know, Arkansas, Alabama's going to be really good. They got a lot of talent. You know, this conference is tough. You know, there's no walk in the park. It's a you know, the Big 12 was a great league last year. It was a fantastic league with so many great teams that were great. And, you know, we had a lot of teams in the tournament, and I think that's what the SEC is going to bring. I think the competition level is high, and I think it's an exciting time for Missouri basketball because it's new. You know, we get our new rival in Arkansas in, and obviously with Coach Anderson being in the SEC, there's a lot of headlines that can be said. But I think it's going to be a great challenge, and I think that our program right now is ready for that challenge. We're ready for Kentucky. We're ready for Florida. It's just, you know, getting everything on track and getting everything on page, everyone on the same page, and go from there.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, Jarrett, this is going to be a really fun season to watch. Look forward to it as it gets rolling here, as the regular season is about to start. Jarrett, man, you've been great. I'll tell you what, you got to come back on and join us anytime. We'll catch up with you as the season progresses, and we'll come on and talk some more Tiger basketball as we get going, my man.
Absolutely. Thanks for the time, man. I appreciate it.
Hey, Jarrett, thanks so much for being on. We appreciate it. We appreciate the 4 years you spent here. You're a great ambassador, and we'll see you around, my man.
Well, thanks so much. I appreciate it.
All right, take care.
You too.
Yeah, really good stuff from Jarrett Sutton. Great insight from him on this Mizzou team, and it's got me even more excited because it sounds like, you know, he was there in practice. He played against a lot of these guys last year, and he says they are going to probably be a force. So Missouri's ranked 15th in the AP poll to start this season. We'll see where that goes. I mean, preseason rankings don't really mean a lot, but we'll see how they do. And I tell you what, Jarrett Sutton's a guy who's got his finger on the pulse of this team. Weird not having him out there because I am definitely going to miss him coming out draining threes, you know, when games are well in hand. But great guy, great stuff. And we're going to move on to the Gonzaga side of things. We're getting ready to bring on Kyle Bankhead, Noah.
That's kind of like our last guest. Kyle Bankhead's famous for coming off the bench and hitting some big threes, getting open in the corner.
Got a pattern here. And, of course, he's a coach currently. He's an assistant at San Diego. And it'll be interesting to see his perspective as far as playing at Gonzaga and then coming back to coach in the same conference with a different team. So.
Yeah, he's been there for 6 years with Bill Greer, who used to be an assistant coach for Gonzaga. He moved on to become the head coach for San Diego, brought Kyle on over. So. This
is an underrated conference, Noah. I like the West Coast Conference. I like to watch these games at midnight when they're coming on after I've watched a Big 12 or SEC game. It's interesting. St. Mary's has been really good. I mean, we had How about Santa Clara back in the day? Steve Nash, of course.
Yes.
We had San Francisco.
It's been a while for those days.
Yeah, and San Diego, and there's a lot of good teams.
BYU, second
BYU's
year in there. BYU, St. Mary's, and Gonzaga are probably the top 3 teams in the league.
Probably your tournament teams, but Gonzaga, I really like bringing back 2 7-footers with 2 unpronounceable names. So I tell you what, these guys.
I think it's Presmek Karnowski is a freshman, and then Elias Harris is a power forward out there. We've got Kevin Pangos.
I like him coming back.
Yes.
Good player. I mean, Gonzaga's ranked 21st.
I think he could be our best guard. I mean, he was only a freshman. He did great things last year.
He fits the mold to me of a typical Gonzaga guard that controls the ball, doesn't commit turnovers, that hits the 3 from anywhere on the court. So as Gonzaga comes in ranked 21st, do you think that's about right for this team to start the year?
I think it is. Yeah. I think we're kind of lacking a little bit on depth coming off the bench. Our starters seem to be really strong. We weren't sure about this Karnowski, 7'1" center out of Poland, but he's had a good exhibition so far. So we'll see what comes from him.
I'll tell you what, Mark Few is one of the greatest, and I'm going to mention this, of course, to Coach Bankhead when he comes on. I think Mark Few is one of the top 3 or 4 coaches in college basketball, and I think he's proven that consistently. To build that program up from nothing is remarkable, and it's not as if this team went to the Elite Eight in 1998 and you never heard of them again. They were just sort of one of those George Mason type teams that you remember hearing their name. Yeah. This is a program and a top 20, top 15, possibly even top 10 type college basketball program. How has he done it?
I mean, just hard work. I mean, he loves that city. Spokane's a small town. He loves his fly fishing up there, and he's just a relentless, smart recruiter, and he knows how to get guys like Gerard Coleman is transferring from Providence. He'll be eligible to play next year. He was a 4-star recruit coming into Providence. So.
Yeah, see, and that's in college basketball, getting those kind of transfers are key. You got guys that go somewhere and they're not happy. Getting them into your program is really key, and Missouri's finding that out right now. So that's going to be a key player. And I think, again, this is going to be a team that wins the West Coast Conference, can be a top, 3, 4, 5 seed type team, and makes a noise in the NCAA tournament. It's just that's what they do.
Yeah, I'm just a little worried about the depth on the bench. We got Gary Bell Jr., who's a nice shooting guard for us starting, and but other than that, I don't really know the guards coming off the bench if they're going to be able to keep it up. But we've got David Stockton, John Stockton's son. He's good for a breath for Kevin Pangos to come off the bench, and he's a good dribbler, passer, can hit the 3 sometimes. So,
well, we're going to find out what former Gonzaga guard Kyle Bankhead thinks of this team, and we're going to bring on Coach Bankhead immediately. Okay, guys, right now we are joined by former Gonzaga basketball player Kyle Bankhead, current assistant at San Diego. Kyle, welcome to the show. It's about time for some college basketball. I bet you guys are really pumped out there on the West Coast.
Yeah, I appreciate you guys having me on. I honestly can't wait till the season starts. So just a couple days away, and I know I'm looking forward to it, and I know our team's looking forward to it.
I'll tell you what, we go back, with you. You played, of course, at Gonzaga, and now you're at San Diego. What's it like, first of all, you played in this conference at Gonzaga. What's it like making the transition from, your playing days at Gonzaga now as a coach out in San Diego? How did that all come about?
Well, the transition was very interesting. I go from my whole college career and the short coaching experience I had up there as a grad assistant, going to a new place for the first time. It was a big change. It was a big change, and for a long time my heart and soul was at Gonzaga, and now all I think about is trying to beat them. So things have changed, but it's been a great experience, a learning experience, and I feel like we got a great group of guys this year, and hopefully can have a successful year down here in San Diego.
How'd you get to San Diego? I mean, you're at Gonzaga with Mark Few. You said you were a grad assistant there, and then Bill Greer goes over to former Gonzaga assistant, goes over to become the head coach at San Diego, and then you follow him there.
Yeah, he got the head coaching job. I had been helping out at the Gonzaga just kind of as a grad assistant, volunteering, and fortunately when he got the job at San Diego, he brought me with him as an assistant, and I'm very grateful for that. For this to be my first coaching job, I mean, it's a very good job and a very good conference, and I'm very grateful for that. So just got fortunate, worked as hard as I could, and when he got the job, he's decided to hire me.
Let's talk about the strength of the West Coast Conference, and this has been building for a lot of years. Gonzaga coming about really in the late 90s with their run to the Elite Eight, and now we've seen other teams, St. Mary's, San Diego, your squad has made the tournament. Just talk about the overall strength of this conference and what, how many teams maybe you think can get in the NCAAs this year from the WCC.
This is my 12th year being around the West Coast Conference, and I don't think it's ever been stronger from top to bottom. I mean, I don't think there's any doubt Gonzaga, St. Mary's, BYU have kind of solidified themselves as, always being towards the top of the league. And I think there's kind of another group that's trying to get into that top three. And right now, and I don't see that changing here for a while, but I think the top three teams in our league will be NCAA tournament teams, and projected right now it looks like it's Gonzaga, St. Mary's, and BYU. And, I think there's probably three teams that are really hoping to maybe break into that top three. I know it's going to be hard, but, we feel like we got a good group of guys and can possibly get up there in the next couple of years. We're still young, and I don't know. We'll see. But the conference from top to bottom is very tough, very tough. So, but overall, I think it's probably a three-bid league this year and for years to come.
Can you going back to your playing days, can you talk about some of the great players you played with, and Adam Morrison and Dan Dickow, Rony Turioff, Blake Stepp, Earl Knight, just to name a few?
Yeah, I was very fortunate. My time I spent on the floor was pretty easy. I had a lot of guys around me that took a lot of the load with them, and I was lucky enough to just stand out there and shoot wide open threes because I had such good players around me. From Dan Dickow, who was probably the best scorer I had ever played with until Adam came along. I think probably the best all-around player I played with was Blake Stepp. He just did pretty much everything. He didn't score as much as Dan and Adam, but was a tremendous all-around player, rebounded, guarded, gave with the ball, very good passer, and just an all-around winner. It was kind of unfortunate he ended up in the NBA. Had some knee problems, so but I was fortunate. Rony Turioff still in the league. I still think, going back to my early days, my first 2 years at Gonzaga, I thought that was the group that really set the tone for where that program is now. You go back to Casey Calvary, Mark Spink, Matt Santangelo, Quentin Hall.
Richie Fromm.
Richie Fromm. That group really, really put Gonzaga on the map. And, I think the group that I ended up going through Gonzaga with really kind of carried the torch. And now it's just, it's blown up to where they're getting pretty high-level recruits. And it's just, I don't know, it's just rolling now. So.
What did you and the team make of Zach Gord's interesting hook shot in the middle of the lane?
Zach had a great hook shot. He's a little bit different player, but he's a very good scorer. And like a lot of guys through that program, they have different skills, and Zach could shoot that hook shot from about 8 to 10 feet, so with ease.
I want to talk about your former coach, Mark Few, for a minute. This is a guy that I think is one of probably the top 3 or 4 coaches in all of college basketball, leading that program to where it is right now. Mark Few is a guy, he always winds up kind of being in the rumor mill for other jobs. Kyle, why does he remain at Gonzaga? Do you think he just loves the area, loves the team, loves the program? Has he not moved on to a bigger job by now?
I think it's a comfort thing. I don't think he's really into the big bells and whistles that you can sometimes have at the big BCS schools where you got to deal with boosters day in and day out and do this day in, day out, be in the office from 8 to 7. That's not really his mindset. He likes being kind of secluded. He feels comfortable with the job. He loves to fly fish. He's in an area where he can go do that and get to that quickly. His family likes that area. I don't think he's ever going to leave. Without a doubt, I think he's going to retire there. He feels comfortable. He's successful there. He's very, very popular, not only in Spokane, but in the, Pacific Northwest. So there's no real, I don't know, I don't think there's any real advantage of him leaving, to try and go build somewhere else, something where he's already at a place that he built something. So I think he's going to be there for life, and, he's loved in that area, so that it makes no sense for him to leave.
Can you talk about your 2012 Toreros team and what you see out of them so far?
Yeah, we have a pretty good group of guys. We struggled a little bit early last year, but we were starting, by the end of the year, we were starting
Well, I'll tell you what, before we let you go, I got to ask you, you've been at San Diego a little while. Just describe your emotion whenever you go back to Spokane to play, at Gonzaga. What kind of emotions go through your head as you're coaching against your former team and just being, back, in Spokane coaching?
Yeah, the first couple of years it was kind of emotional. I mean, I spent so much time there, and my experiences there meant so much to me. But last couple of years you just go up there and you coach and you try and get your team ready to win the game up there. Although it's extremely tough, you just go up there and you coach, and you're disappointed if you lose, and ecstatic if you win. Obviously it's tough to get a win up there, but it's just another game. You go up there and you try and win it and prepare your team.
Can you give our listeners some insight on what makes Mark Few Mark Few?
Oh man, he's a pretty quiet guy for the most part when coaching wise and stuff like that. But I think he is tremendous at pushing the right buttons. He's got a great feel for how to motivate without yelling and all that stuff. I don't know. He's a very smart person. He lets his players play, gives them a lot of freedom, and puts guys in a position to be successful. So.
Well, Coach Kyle Bankhead, we can't thank you enough for being on today. Good luck this season. We're going to be watching your Toreros, and hopefully we'll catch up with you down the road with the WCC tournament title down the road, my man. We appreciate you being on today.
All right, sounds good. I appreciate you guys having me.
Thanks a lot. Take care. Thanks a lot to Coach Kyle Bankhead for joining us. We're going to be watching and following San Diego all year. Definitely going to be following Gonzaga. But as we look to this, as we look at further into the top 10, we've got a couple programs that are still looking right, in the top 10. Number 8, Duke. Number 9, Syracuse. These are teams that are always there, blue blood programs, and we'll see what Duke brings back. I like Seth Curry, and I really like Andre Dawkins. Mason Plumlee's still there. Seems like he should be gone by now. And I just the Plumlee twins, I should say, should be gone by now. They're still there. Duke just seems like
I heard
a team.
they got 8 years eligibility. So.
Well, that's sometimes what it takes. This is a team that's a blue blood program. They've been winning the ACC off and on with North Carolina for the last few years, but I just don't feel like they're right now where they need to be. They don't have the size, the dominant big man. We'll see.
Coach K will have them in there no matter what.
They'll be a top 1, 2, 3 seed at worst. That's what Duke does. Yeah. And Syracuse is an interesting one because the on again off again Thad Mello from last year. We saw him. How do they replace him? What is Syracuse?
Raheem Christmas. This kid has been killing it early in
I like Brandon
exhibition
Trish
games.
too.
Brandon Trish, yes, their guard. He's gonna have to run things. They lost a few guys, but I really like Brandon Trish running the show, and then it's going to be a 2-man game between him and Raheem Christmas.
Going to be a good team. I think 2 good teams, and we're going to see going. There's a lot. I think a lot of teams have as good as opportunity as ever to get into this mix and to play good basketball. So we're going to be really watching that, and as we look at kind of individual players coming into this, I'll tell you what. It's Cody Zeller. I think he's got to be your preseason, player of the year in college basketball. To me, he's
I agree with
smooth.
that.
I love him around the rim.
Him and James McAdoo, I really like. So from North Carolina.
Yeah, and I think NC State is an interesting team. They had a really good recruit, Rodney Purvis, this year. C.J. Leslie is going to be huge for them, and that's going to make that team go. I really like NC State. Coming into 2012, 2013.
What about this Michael Dixon guy I keep hearing about? What about
preseason second-team All-American Michael Dixon, and I think Phil Pressey? You could interchange either one. In fact, Phil Pressey was the preseason SEC Player of the Year, which is unbelievable, as voted by the coaches. So either one of those 2 guards, Missouri's definitely loaded at that position, and Michael Dixon coming back. He's going to have to become that Marcus Denman, a guy that can create his own shot to lead the team, and I think that Jarrett Sutton kind of alluded to that when we talked to him. So going to be interesting there. We've talked about all the Kentucky guys. I love Alex Poitras, and I hope I say that correctly. B.J. Young at Arkansas. Maybe Arkansas is a little off our radar. Maybe they're an SEC team that can come in and contend with B.J. Young. Great guard play out of them. I'll tell you what, guys, we cannot appreciate you enough for joining us on our college basketball preview. Questions, concerns, if you guys hated something about what we said, please let us know. Is that always on the table, I guess? Or do we take criticism poorly? I don't know.
I take it poorly. Maybe you could take it better. I don't know. I'm joking. Just let us hear it.
Outsiders Podcast, guys. Be joining us on Facebook and at Twitter. Follow us at Chiefs Outsiders. Come hit us up. Let us know what you think about our college basketball preview, and we will see you during the season. College basketball 2012. It is time to roll, boys.
Go Zags.